The morning light from the twin suns of Velar Prime came through the tall windows of the Galactic Union Academy. Park walked through the wide halls with his bag over his shoulder. He was late for class again, not because he woke up late. He just liked to wait until most students had already gone inside. It was easier that way. Had been at this academy for 3 years now. 3 long years of being the only human in most of his classes. 3 years of strange looks, whispered comments, and laughter that stopped whenever he turned around. He had learned to keep his head down and his mouth shut. He had learned that explaining things to aliens who did not want to listen was a waste of time. He reached the large door of the Xenobiology lecture hall and took a deep breath. Then he pushed it open and stepped inside. The room was shaped like a half circle with seats rising up in rows. At the bottom was a wide stage where the professor stood. Above the stage floated a holographic display showing some kind of animal skeleton. 37 alien students sat in the seats. They came from different worlds and looked nothing like each other. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had skin that changed color. Some had no skin at all, just hard shells or smooth crystal surfaces. All of them turned to look at as he entered. He kept his eyes forward and walked up the steps to the back row. He always sat in the back. It was safer there. Fewer eyes on him. Fewer chances for trouble. Professor stood at the front of the room. She was a species known for their intelligence and their cold personalities. She stood almost 3 meters tall, with blue-green scales that shimmered under the lights. She had 4 arms, and each arm ended in 3 long fingers. Her eyes were large and yellow, and she had 4 of them arranged in a diamond shape on her face. "You are late," said without looking at. "Sorry, Professor," replied quietly. "Sit down, do not interrupt again." Sat in his usual seat and pulled out his. The student next to him, a large named, shifted his massive body away slightly, as if carried some kind of disease. Was huge. His species looked like a mix between a bear and a crocodile. He had thick gray skin, powerful arms, and a mouth full of teeth that could bite through metal. His tusks curved up from his lower jaw like white swords. He was proud of those tusks. All were proud of their teeth. "Today we continue our study of comparative anatomy," Professor announced. She moved one of her 4 hands, and the holographic display changed. "We will examine dental structures across apex predator species." The display showed a rotating image of different teeth, sharp fangs from one species, curved cutting blades from another, massive crushing jaws from a third. "The teeth of a species tell us much about their evolution," continued. "They tell us what the species eats, how it hunts, and where it sits in the food chain of its world." She moved through several examples. The teeth appeared on screen and sat up with pride. The display praised their crushing power and their ability to tear through almost any material. Then came the mandibles. A student named clicked her blade-like mouth parts together. Her species had jaws that could cut through bone like scissors through paper. The teeth came next. A female student named smiled to show her crystalline teeth. They were beautiful and deadly. Her species could bite through starship hull metal. Each species had something special. Each species had teeth that made them dangerous. Then the display changed to show human teeth. The room went silent for a moment. Then the laughter started. It began as small chuckles. Then it grew louder. Students pointed at the screen. They shook their heads. They made comments to each other in languages did not understand, but he understood the meaning well enough. "And here," Professor said, "we see perhaps the most underwhelming dental development in the known galaxy." More laughter. The holographic image showed a human skull with its teeth exposed, flat molars in the back, small pointed canines on the sides, straight incisors in the front, nothing special, nothing scary. "These are the teeth of a Category 7 species," explained. "Humans are classified as persistence predators with negligible natural weaponry." Turned his massive head to look at. His yellow eyes were full of amusement. "Those flat little pebbles," said loudly. "My hatchlings have sharper teeth before they leave the egg." The class laughed again. Even Professor allowed a small smile to cross her scaled face. Said nothing. He kept his eyes on his. He had heard these jokes before. He had heard worse. "How did they survive there?" asked a student from the middle rows. "He had 4 eyes and teeth like needles. With teeth like that, they should have died out long ago." "They used tools," answered simply. "Humans learned to use weapons and fire because they could not hunt with their bodies alone. Their evolution is a story of compensation. They lacked claws, so they made spears. They lacked fangs, so they made knives. They lacked natural armor, so they made shelters." "Weak," muttered, just loud enough for to hear. His hand tightened on his, but he stayed quiet. He had learned this lesson long ago. Fighting back with words only made things worse. These aliens did not understand humans. They saw small teeth and thought weakness. They saw soft skin and thought prey. They did not know what humans really were. After class ended, gathered his things slowly. He waited for most of the students to leave before standing up. As he walked toward the door, blocked his path. "Human," said, looking down at with those cold, yellow eyes. "How does it feel to be the weakest species in the galaxy?" Looked up at the massive, was twice his size. His tusks were longer than his forearm. His claws could tear through steel. "Excuse me," said calmly. "I need to get to my next class." Snorted but moved aside. "Run along, little human. Try not to break those tiny teeth." Walked past him without another word. He kept his face blank. He kept his breathing steady. But inside his chest, something old and dark stirred. Something that humans had carried with them since they first stood up on the plains of Africa and looked at the predators around them. Not fear. Patience. The patience of a species that had hunted mammoths into extinction. The patience of a species that had tamed wolves and made them pets. The patience of a species that had climbed to the top of their food chain not through strength or speed or deadly natural weapons, but through something far more dangerous. Walked out into the hallway and headed toward the dining hall. Tomorrow was another day, another class, another round of jokes and insults. He could wait. Humans were very good at waiting. The dining hall of the Galactic Union Academy was a massive space filled with hundreds of tables. Each section served different types of food for different species. Some ate raw meat. Some ate living insects. Some absorbed nutrients through their skin and did not eat at all. The smells mixed together into something strange and sometimes unpleasant. Sat alone at a small table near the wall. In front of him was a simple meal: rice, vegetables, and a piece of cooked fish. The academy had a small selection of human food brought in from Earth colonies at great expense. It was not as good as home cooking, but it was better than nothing. He was halfway through his meal when someone sat down across from him. "I heard what happened in your class today." Looked up. A young woman with black hair and sharp eyes looked back at him. Her name was, and she was the only other human at the entire academy. She studied in a different program, something related to interstellar communication, so they rarely saw each other. But when they did meet, she always made time to talk. "It was nothing," said, "just the usual jokes." "The usual jokes?" His voice was flat. "They compared your teeth to pebbles. They called you the weakest species in the galaxy. That does not sound like nothing." Shrugged and took another bite of his fish. "What do you want me to do? Fight them? Is twice my size. He could break me in half without trying." "I did not say fight them," leaned forward. "But you do not have to just accept it either. You do not have to sit there and take their insults like you deserve them." "I do not care what they think." "Yes, you do." Eyes softened. "You care, I can see it. Every human would care. We are proud people. We conquered our world. We reached the stars. We earned our place in this galaxy. And these aliens look at us like we are insects." Put down his chopsticks. "What do you want me to say? They are not wrong. Look at us. No claws, no fangs, no armor, no poison. Compared to most species in this academy, we are soft and weak. Soft and weak, laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that what you think, after everything our species has done? I know what we have done, but they do not see that. They see our bodies and they make their judgments. Nothing I say will change their minds. Was quiet for a moment. Then she reached across the table and took one of the vegetables from his plate. She bit into it and chewed slowly. Maybe words will not change their minds, she said finally, but actions might. One day they will push too far, and when that day comes, you should show them exactly what humans are capable of. Did not respond. He finished his meal in silence while watched him with those knowing eyes. The next few days were worse than usual. Word had spread through the xenobiology department about the lecture on human teeth. Now it was not just classmates who laughed at him. Students from other classes pointed and whispered when he walked by. Someone had made a joke image that spread through the academy's social network. It showed a human skull next to a skull. The caption read, "Evolution's greatest failure meets evolution's greatest success." Deleted the image from his, without reading the comments. In class, the mockery continued. Professor seemed to enjoy using humans as an example of evolutionary weakness. Every lecture found some way to mention their soft bodies, their slow reflexes, their pathetic natural weapons. The human species survived through intelligence and tool use, explained during one lesson. This is, of course, a common path for weaker species. When the body fails, the mind must compensate. At least they had minds to compensate with, commented. The class laughed. During a lab session on predatory classifications, another instructor named sorted species into threat categories. Was the same species known for their blade-like mandibles. She stood at the front of the lab with a holographic list floating beside her. She announced, Category 3, apex predators with extreme bite force and natural body armor. Grinned proudly. Continued, Category 2, apex predators with unmatched cutting capability and ambush hunting tactics. The students in the room clicked their mandibles in approval. Category 4, apex predators with crystalline dental structures capable of penetrating most known materials. And so it went. Each species received their classification. Each species had something to be proud of. Then reached humans on her list. Humans, she said, and the room went quiet with anticipation. Category 7, persistence predators with negligible natural weaponry, threat level minimal. The laughter exploded through the lab. Students from a dozen different worlds found common ground in their amusement at humanity's expense. Sat at his workstation and said nothing. His hands were still. His face was blank. But inside, that dark thing stirred again. That ancient patience that his ancestors had used to outlast ice ages and predators and every challenge their harsh world had thrown at them. How did they even reach the stars? Asked a student between laughs. Did they beg other species for rides? They built their own ships, answered matter-of-factly. Humans are surprisingly clever for a Category 7 species. They compensate for their physical weaknesses with technology. Compensate, repeated the word like it tasted bad. Always compensating, always making up for what they lack. It must be exhausting to be so insufficient. He looked directly at as he said it. Met his gaze. For a long moment the two of them stared at each other, the massive with his tusks and claws and armored hide, the small human with his flat teeth and soft skin. Then looked away and returned to his work. That evening found him in the library. He was sitting in a quiet corner, reading through old research papers on human biology. She sat down beside him and looked at his screen. Studying our own species now. Gathering information, replied. For what? I do not know yet. He scrolled through a paper on human bite force, but I want to be ready. Smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. Good, she said. Because I heard something interesting today. Next week, there is a practical examination in your xenobiology class. Something about testing dental structures against standardized samples. Looked up from his reading. What kind of samples? Bone. They say it is almost impossible to break. The hardest biological material in 12-star systems. Was quiet for a moment, then he turned back to his research. Tell me everything you know about this examination, he said. The week passed slowly. Each day brought more lectures, more labs, and more quiet mockery. Attended every class and took careful notes. He spoke only when spoken to and kept his thoughts to himself. But in the evenings he studied. He read everything he could find about human biology. Not the simple overviews that alien textbooks provided, but the deep research from human scientists. He learned about the structure of human teeth, the arrangement of enamel and dentin, the powerful muscles of the human jaw. He read about bite force and grinding capability. He studied the history of human diet, from the raw meat of early hunters to the cooked foods of modern civilization. He also researched bone. They were a species from a high-gravity world. Their bodies had evolved to withstand crushing pressure and extreme stress. Their bones were legendary throughout the galaxy, thick, dense, and reinforced with mineral structures that made them harder than most metals. Bone was used in construction, in armor, in tools that needed to withstand incredible force. The practical examination would test each student's dental capability against a sample of this bone. According to the research found, no biological teeth in the known galaxy could fully break through bone without specialized adaptation. The examination was designed to measure performance, not success. No one was expected to actually destroy the sample, but kept reading. He found old papers about human ancestors, about how early humans had cracked open bones to eat the marrow inside, about how human molars were designed not for cutting or tearing, but for grinding, for crushing things into paste, for processing foods that other animals could not eat. Human teeth were not weak. They were specialized for a different kind of eating than the aliens understood. On the night before the examination, met him in his small dormitory room. She brought food from the human section of the dining hall and set it on his desk. "You need to eat," she said. "You have been studying too much." Looked up from his eyes were tired, but there was something new in them, a spark that had not been there before. "I found something interesting," he said. "What?" "Human bite force." He turned to show her a chart. "Aliens measure it wrong. They measure the force at the front teeth where we bite into things, but that is not where human power is. Our real strength is in our molars, in the back of our jaw. When we grind food between our back teeth, the force is much higher than aliens realize." Looked at the numbers on the screen. Her eyebrows rose. "That is significant," she admitted. "It gets better," scrolled to another section. "Human teeth are also more durable than they appear. Our enamel is designed for a lifetime of grinding tough foods. Nuts, seeds, fibrous plants, raw vegetables, cooked meat, even bone. Human teeth evolved to handle variety, not specialization." "So you think you can damage the bone sample?" Was quiet for a moment. "I think I can do more than damage it." Studied his face. "You have changed," she said. "A week ago you were ready to give up, to just accept their mockery forever. What happened?" I remembered something, set down his. "My grandfather used to tell me stories about our ancestors, about how they survived when everything was against them. Ice ages, predators, starvation, disease. Every challenge the world threw at them, they survived. Not because they were the strongest or the fastest or the deadliest, but because they refused to quit. And now I am tired of being quiet." His voice hardened. "I am tired of accepting insults from aliens who do not understand what we are. Tomorrow I am going to show them." The next morning arrived with clear skies and bright sunlight. Woke early and prepared carefully. He ate a good breakfast. He stretched his jaw muscles, something he had learned from his research. He reviewed his notes one more time. Then he walked to the xenobiology lecture hall. The room was already full when he arrived. Word had spread about the practical examination. Students from other classes had come to watch. The amphitheater seats were packed with aliens of every shape and size. They all wanted to see the different species test their teeth against the legendary bone. Professor stood at the front of the room with a sealed container beside her. Her 4 yellow eyes scanned the crowd. Today's examination will test dental capability against a standardized sample, she announced. Each student will attempt to damage a piece of bone using only their natural teeth. No tools, no enhancements, pure biological capability. She opened the container and removed a segment of bone. It was about the size of a human fist, dark gray in color and polished smooth. Even from the back row could see how dense it was, how solid. The bone will be examined after each attempt, continued. Damage will be measured and recorded. This examination tests your species' natural predatory capability. The results will be added to your permanent academic record. A murmur ran through the crowd. Academic records mattered. They determined job opportunities, research positions, and social status in the Galactic Union. A poor performance on this examination could follow a student for the rest of their life. We will proceed in alphabetical order by species, said. First up. A large student walked to the front. His mandibles were thick and heavy, designed for cracking open the hard shells of prey on his. He took the bone sample in his clawed hands and brought it to his mouth. The sound of his mandibles against the bone was loud and harsh. He bit down with all his strength, again and again. When he finally stopped, his mandibles were slightly chipped and the bone had a few shallow scratches on its surface. Minimal damage recorded. Next. A cat-like alien approached. Her teeth were long and sharp, designed for piercing and tearing. She bit the bone from multiple angles. Her fangs left thin marks but could not penetrate the surface. Surface damage only, noted. Next. One by one, the species were called. The student, ironically, could not damage the bone from his own world. His teeth were designed for different foods. This blade-like mandibles scraped against the surface but could not find purchase. This crystalline teeth, famous for cutting through metal, managed only shallow grooves before the student complained of pain. Each failure brought muttered discussions from the crowd. The bone was too hard, too dense, nothing could break it. Was called near the middle of the examination. The big walked to the front with confidence. His tusks gleamed under the lights. His species was known for having some of the strongest jaws in the galaxy. He grabbed the bone and bit down with tremendous force. The sound was like a gunshot. The entire room flinched. When pulled the bone away from his mouth, there was a visible crack in the surface. Not deep, but real. The first actual damage any student had caused. The crowd erupted in impressed murmurs, smiled proudly and returned to his seat, looking directly at as he passed. Significant surface fracture recorded. Most impressive results so far. Next, human. The room went silent, then the laughter began. It started as quiet chuckles, then it grew louder. Students pointed at as he stood up. They whispered to each other. Some made jokes about how he should be careful not to break his teeth. His voice rose above the noise. Perhaps the human should be excused. We would not want him to chip those little calcium squares. More laughter. Professor's 4 eyes studied as he walked down the steps toward the front of the room. There was no sympathy in her gaze, only cold scientific curiosity. The examination is mandatory, she said. All students must participate. Reached the front of the room and stood before the examination platform. The bone sample sat there from 36 attempts, cracked by tusks, scratched by mandibles, grooved by crystal. He picked it up and felt its weight in his hands. The room fell silent. waiting to see what the weak little human would do with the unbreakable bone. Looked at the sample, then he looked at the crowd, then he smiled. "Let me show you something," he said quietly. The bone was cold against his lips, heavy, dense, could feel the weight of it, the solidity that had resisted every species in the room. His heart beat steady and slow in his chest. The laughter from the crowd had faded into expectant silence. He did not put the bone against his front teeth. He did not try to bite through it like the others had. Instead, he moved it to the back of his mouth, positioning it between his molars. The flat grinding teeth that aliens called pebbles, the teeth they laughed at. "Human teeth," he said, his voice clear in the silent room, "are not designed for one function." He adjusted his grip on the bone, holding it steady. "They are designed for everything." Then he bit down. The first thing he felt was pressure, enormous pressure as his jaw muscles engaged. Humans did not have the largest jaws in the galaxy. They did not have the longest fangs or the sharpest edges, but they had something else. They had grinding power, the same power that had crushed nuts and seeds and bones on the plains of Africa for millions of years. The bone resisted. For one long moment, it held firm against his molars, pressed harder. He engaged muscles that most humans never used in modern life, muscles that had evolved for exactly this purpose. The crack was loud. It echoed through the amphitheater like a thunderbolt. Every alien in the room flinched at the sound. On the front row, his confident expression flickered into confusion, but was not finished. He shifted the bone slightly and bit down again. Another crack, then another. He was not trying to cut through the bone like the others had attempted. He was grinding it, crushing it, breaking it down the way his ancestors had broken down the bones of mammoths and bison to reach the nutritious marrow inside. The sounds continued, crack after crack after crack. The dense material that had resisted the deadliest teeth in the galaxy was coming apart under human molars. Professor took a step back. Her 4 eyes were wide. In 300 years of teaching, she had never seen anything like this. Worked his jaw methodically, back and forth, side to side. The grinding motion that human teeth were truly designed for. The bone fragments mixed with his saliva. He could taste the mineral dust on his tongue. It was not pleasant, but he did not care. He kept grinding. When he finally stopped, he leaned over the examination platform and spat. The room watched in stunned silence as chunks and powder and splinters fell from his mouth. The bone that had survived every test, that had made 36 alien species look weak, lay destroyed on the platform. Not just cracked, not just damaged, shattered, ground down, reduced to fragments by human teeth. Straightened up and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Humans are omnivores," he said. His voice was calm, steady. "We eat plants that would poison your species. We eat meat raw or cooked. We crack nuts that other animals cannot open. We strip bark from trees and chew it for medicine. We crush seeds into paste, and we break bones to get to the marrow inside." He paused and looked directly at. "Our teeth are not weak. They are versatile, adapted for every food source our planet could offer. And our bite force, relative to jaw size, exceeds almost every species in this room." The silence stretched on. No one laughed. No one whispered. The aliens stared at the destroyed bone on the platform like they could not believe what they had just witnessed. Professor was the first to move. She stepped forward slowly, her 4 arms hanging at her sides. She looked at the remains of the bone sample. Then she looked back at the bone. "This is unprecedented," she said quietly. "No," shook his head. "This is human, you just never bothered to understand." He turned to face the crowd. Dozens of alien faces looked back at him. He saw shock on some, fear on others, and on a few, something that might have been the beginning of respect. "You classified us as Category 7, he continued. "Persistence predators with negligible natural weaponry. Do you know what persistence predators are? We are the species that chased prey until it died of exhaustion. Our ancestors would follow an animal for days without stopping, without resting, until the prey collapsed and we walked up to it and killed it with rocks. He pointed at the ruined bone. That is what human evolution produced, not the fastest species, not the strongest species, not the species with the biggest teeth or the sharpest claws, but the species that could outlast anything, the species that could adapt to anything, the species that would not stop until the job was done. Stood up from his seat. His face was twisted with anger and confusion. His pride as a member of a species known for dental power had been wounded. That is not possible, he said. Your teeth are flat, weak. They are not designed for crushing bone. They are designed for exactly that, replied. You just assumed they were weak because they are different from yours. Different is not weak. Different is adapted. But the measurements, looked to Professor for support. The data says human bite force is minimal. The data measures front teeth, explained. Because that is how most species bite. They grab with their front teeth and tear, but humans do not hunt like that. We process food differently. Our power is in the back of our jaw, in our molars, where we grind. He mimed the motion with his jaw, the side-to-side grinding that humans used unconsciously every time they ate. Your species bites down, he said. We grind across, different motion, different muscles, different results. Move to the platform and examine the fragments more closely. Her scientific mind was already working, already reassessing everything she thought she knew about humans. The damage pattern, she murmured. It is consistent with sustained lateral pressure, grinding force applied over multiple points rather than concentrated vertical force. Yes, said. Human teeth are designed to break down tough materials over time, not to cut through them quickly but to wear them down, to crush them, to process them. But the energy required, looked up at him. The sustained muscular effort to produce this level of damage would be enormous. Humans are endurance specialists, allowed himself a small smile. We do not get tired easily. Our muscles are designed for sustained effort over long periods. We can chew tough foods for as long as we need to. The room remained silent. The students who had laughed were not laughing anymore. The students who had mocked were not mocking anymore. They were looking at the small human with new eyes, uncertain eyes. Professor straightened and turned to face the class. The examination results will need to be recalculated, she announced. The standard methodology did not account for species with lateral grinding capability. She looked at Mr. Park, I apologize. Our classifications were based on incomplete understanding. Nodded once, I know. The records will be updated. Humans will be reclassified based on this new data. Good, gathered himself and walked toward the steps. But while you are updating records, you might want to remember something. He stopped and looked back at the professor. Teeth are not what made humans dangerous. They are just one small part of what we are. You have only begun to understand what our species is capable of. Then he walked up the steps and toward the door. The crowd parted silently to let him pass, even moved aside, his tusks suddenly seeming less impressive than they had an hour ago. At the back of the room, near the entrance, stood waiting. She had slipped in to watch the examination. Her face held a fierce pride. Reached her, and they walked out of the lecture hall together. The hallway outside the lecture hall was quiet. Walked beside, his footsteps echoing on the polished floor. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. The weight of what had just happened hung in the air between them. Finally broke the silence. That was incredible, she said. The look on their faces when the bone shattered, I wish I had recorded it. Flexed his jaw. His muscles ached from the effort, but it was a good kind of ache. The ache of a body that had done what it was designed to do. It felt good, he admitted, better than I expected. 3 years, shook her head. 3 years of their mockery, and you destroyed their confidence in 5 minutes. I did not destroy their confidence. I just showed them something they did not know. Paused near a window that looked out over the academy grounds. They made assumptions about humans based on appearance. They looked at our teeth and saw weakness because our teeth do not look like theirs. They never considered that different might not mean inferior. Will they change now? Thought about the question. He had seen the shock on their faces, the confusion, the beginning of something that might become respect, but he had also seen the anger in his eyes, the wounded pride. Some of them will change, he said. Some will think harder before judging other species by their appearance, but others will just find new reasons to feel superior. That is how people are. Human or alien, it does not matter. Some learn from new information, others reject it. They continued walking through the academy's wide corridors. Other students passed them, but none made mocking comments. Word had not yet spread about what happened in the examination, but knew it would soon. By tomorrow, every student in the academy would know what the weak little human had done to the unbreakable bone. What happens now? Asked. Now I go to my next class. Check the time on his. Molecular biology in 30 minutes. I meant with the other students, with your classification, with everything. Considered this as they walked. Professor said they would update the records, reclassify humans based on new data. That is good, but records are just numbers on a screen. What matters is how people think, how they see us. And how do you think they will see us now? Differently, stopped at a junction in the corridor. His next class was to the left. Department was to the right. Not as friends, not as equals, but differently. They will wonder what else they got wrong about humans, what else we can do that they did not expect. Smiled. Good. Let them wonder, let them worry. There is something else, lowered his voice. I meant what I said in there. Teeth are not what made humans dangerous. They are just one small example. There is so much more that these aliens do not understand. Like what? Our endurance, our adaptability, our ability to survive in any environment, our immune systems that fight off diseases that would kill other species in days. Eyes grew distant. Our hands that can craft tools with impossible precision. Our minds that can plan years into the future. Our social bonds that make us fight to the death for family and friends. He looked at. They call us Category 7, minimal threat, but they have never seen what happens when humans decide something needs to die. They have never faced a species that hunted its most dangerous predators to extinction for sport. They have never encountered the warriors who conquered their own planet and then looked at the stars and said, "We want those too." His expression grew serious. You are scaring me a little. Good, his voice was soft, because I scare myself sometimes. When I think about what our species has done, what we are capable of, we smile and act friendly and the aliens think we are harmless. But there is something inside every human, something old and dark and very, very patient. The thing that our ancestors used to survive. Yes, it sleeps most of the time. Most humans go their whole lives without waking it up, but it is always there, and when it wakes, shook his head. I felt it today, when I was crushing that bone. For a moment, I was not a student at an academy. I was something older, something that remembered what it meant to be a hunter in a world full of things that wanted to eat us. Reached out and touched his arm. Are you okay? Blinked and seemed to come back to himself. The strange darkness faded from his eyes, replaced by his normal calm expression. I am fine, I just got a little carried away. He managed a small smile. 3 years of frustration will do that. Fair enough. Let go of his arm. I should go. My class starts soon too. Wait, stopped her. You said something last week about the Tactical Combat Studies course, about how they think human endurance is a myth. I remember. Is that true? They actually think our endurance is exaggerated. Nodded. The in particular. They cannot believe any species can run for hours without stopping. They think our records are propaganda to make us seem more impressive than we are. Was quiet for a moment, then he smiled, a real smile, the first real smile had seen from him in months. When is that class? Tomorrow, fourth period. I might stop by to watch. Laughed. After today, they might not want to challenge any human claims. Maybe, but I think they will. Pride is hard to let go of. Will want revenge for what happened. He will not accept that a human beat him at something. He will look for other contests, other ways to prove superiority. And you will be ready. Smile widened. Humans are always ready. We just do not show it until we need to. They parted at the corridor junction, walked toward his molecular biology class and headed to her department. But as she walked, she looked back once. Was standing at the window again, looking out at the twin suns of Velar Prime. He did not look weak anymore. He did not look like prey. He looked like something that had decided to stop hiding what it was. Turned back to her path and kept walking. A smile played on her lips. Let them learn, she thought. Let them discover what humans really are. Let them update their classifications and rewrite their textbooks and revise their assumptions, because teeth were just the beginning. Tomorrow, they would learn about endurance. Next week, maybe they would learn about human hands. And someday, if they pushed hard enough, they might learn about human war. Back in the lecture hall, Professor had dismissed the class and now stood alone at the examination platform. The fragments of bone still lay scattered where had spat them. She picked up one of the pieces and examined it under a magnifying lens. The fracture patterns were unlike anything she had seen in her long career. Not cut, not pierced, ground, crushed by sustained pressure from multiple angles at once. The bone had been destroyed in a way that her species' teeth could never replicate. She set down the fragment and opened her. The human species file needed updating. The threat classification needed revising. The academic literature needed correcting. Category 7 was wrong. It had always been wrong. Began typing, her 4 hands moving quickly across the interface. New classification for Homo, Category 4. No. She paused and thought about what she had witnessed, the methodical destruction, the calm explanation, the darkness in the human's eyes when he spoke of what his species had done. Category 3. Apex generalist predators with underestimated biological capability and extreme psychological adaptability. She saved the file and sat back. But even as she did, she knew the classification was still incomplete, because categories measured biological threat. They did not measure what a species would do, what they were willing to do. Humans had conquered their own planet. They had crossed the void between stars. They had inserted themselves into galactic civilization and smiled politely while bigger and stronger species laughed at them. And they had waited, patiently, until someone finally gave them a reason to stop waiting. Thought about the look in his eyes as he crushed the bone, the ancient hunger behind the modern calm. She shivered and closed her. Perhaps some questions were better left unanswered. Behind them, the aliens were left to stare at the shattered remains of unbreakable bone. And he raised the bone to his mouth. And did.